Greetings from Pintpot. Welcome to my latest edition of Climbing the Curve, a series intended to make you the hunter, rather than the hunted, a little faster. Today I'm going to be taking a look at C4. Now C4 is unlockable on all classes apart from infiltrators. It costs 200 certs to unlock the first brick and an additional 500 certs to unlock the second. Each class can only carry 2 bricks of C4 with the exception of the engineer. If you invest 1100 certs in your utility pouch, you can carry up to 4 bricks. In addition, it costs 100 infantry resources per brick to buy. On top of this, if you die placing C4 and are not revived, the C4 disappears when you redeploy, unlike anti-tank mines. So in other words, particularly for newer players, it's a pretty expensive proposition. However, it is also a particularly powerful tool, particularly versus maxes and vehicles. And for some classes, such as the light assault medic, it is the only tool available which allows them to hit heavy targets. So quickly, the mechanics of C4. In its central blast zone, provided the target is not wearing flak armor, C4 will one-shot a max and any infantryman. It will also take off about 80% of the health of a lightning and about 65% of the health of a main battle tank. It also does about 45% damage per brick to a Sunderer without blockade armor. This goes down to about 25% damage versus a fully upgraded blockade armor Sunderer, up above of a number of bricks to kill against various targets. Now the blast radius of C4 is not that large. 5 meters seems the very outer zone, so against infantry it will do very marginal damage from this distance, and against armor effectively none. But as you can see as I creep in for 4 meters and then 3 meters, the damage versus infantry and armor increases dramatically, and once within 2 meters you get the full impact of the damage. So in other words, C4 can't be used to blanket explosive an entire area. Versus infantry or max targets, you have to be relatively accurate with it. And though vehicles are obviously much larger targets, you have to get the C4 pretty close to them in order for it to be effective. For infantry and maxes, flak armor rank 1 will protect you being versus one-shotted by C4. For both classes, just having a sliver of health left. A max rank flak armor, a max will have about 45% health left and an infantryman about 40%. So in other words, to get a guaranteed kill versus either a max, an infantryman, or a vehicle excluding the Sunderer, you need to use 2 bricks of C4. Which is the first problem newer players have with C4. 1 brick of C4 is always useful for doing damage, but to guarantee the kill you need both, and that's an investment of 700 certs. So how does placing C4 work? Well, C4 resides in your utility slot. With C4 selected, you right click it to deploy it and left click to set it off. Once deployed, it can also be set off by explosives or being shot. It also deploys in direction you're facing, so if you look at your feet it will go directly down. And if you look a little over the horizon, you'll lob it further. However, as you can tell, the deploy range is reasonably short, and this is one of the 2 major problems with actually using C4. And the second is the delay time. Changing to C4, deploying it and then setting it off are not instantaneous. Above is a clip of me trying to deploy 2 C4 and set them off as quickly as possible. Counting the number of frames it takes to go through each step, these are the numbers I've come up with. 1 second to switch to C4, an additional 2/3 of a second for it to leave my hand, plus another 1.1 seconds for the animation to finish. Only once it's finished can I start deploying my second brick of C4. The sequence repeats itself, and as soon as you finish the animation for deploying the second C4, you can destroy them immediately. So in other words, 1 second to change the C4 and 1.8 seconds per brick to deploy it. Which if you're facing a target which requires 2 bricks of C4 is a total delay of 4.6 seconds before you can destroy them. Now given the time to kill with most weapons in the game with a 30% accuracy is about 2 to 2.5 seconds, this is an absolute age. In addition, many vehicles you'll be coming across will be able to one-shot you in the meantime. What are the consequences of this? If you're taking the offensive, for C4 to work effectively, either you have to be in a position where the enemy don't see you coming, or in a position where they cannot defend themselves if they do see you. If you're using it defensively, this is much less of a problem because you've already deployed it in advance. However, to use it defensively, you need to rely on the enemy not seeing it and just simply walking over the spot where you've deployed it. So there are drawbacks to both approaches. So given these various drawbacks to C4, how should you be looking to use it in the field? While defensively it can be used effectively by any class. C4 is sticky, so rather than putting it on the floor, I recommend you put it on the sides of walls or other less obvious places. They are particularly useful in choke points, particularly where you know a max is going to be coming through that door. They can also be used effectively as a trap, goading vehicles or maxes to come and kill you, and then they enter your kill zone. But when it comes to using them offensively, the light assault in particular, but also the heavy assault, gain a significant advantage over the medic and engineer. Now, as I said before, given the long delay you have before you can actually trigger your C4, you want to be in a position where the enemy don't see you before you get there, and failing that are not in a position to defend themselves properly when they do see you. And for both these roles, the light assault excels by far. Their three-dimensional movement allows them to get to flanking positions other classes can't manage, and also if they attack from the sky above, then it's very difficult for armoured vehicles to defend themselves against that sort of attack, even if they see it coming. In fact, in my experience, you're much more at risk of infantry seeing you and shooting you with small arms than you are from the tank's secondary gun. And the reason why heavy assaults are quite good at doing these sorts of attack is they only really need to use one brick of C4 per tank. This is because if you attack from the rear, i.e. you properly flank them, by placing a brick of C4 on the rear and then shooting it with your rocket, you'll one-shot the tank. This makes you both an efficient user of C4 and means that there's a relatively small delay between placing your first brick and killing the tank. And on a secondary note, it also means that you can kill a Sunderer instantly by using 2 bricks of C4 and shooting them with a rocket. This is not possible with C4 for any other class other than engineers. Now a quick note on engineers. They can obviously equip 4 C4 with utility pouch, which is enough explosives to destroy 2 tanks or 1 fully blockade armour Sunderer. However, remember engineers also get access to tank mines. So if you can get close enough to place 4 bricks of C4 on a Sunderer, you can probably get close enough to place 2 tank mines next to the Sunderer instead. Tank mines can't be auto-triggered, but they can be shot to blow up. So given the massive investment it requires for new players to get all 4 bricks of C4, I'd recommend just running with tank mines if you're going after an enemy Sunderer. Yes, it puts you at more risk than using C4, but realistically your chances of survival are never very high in those sorts of attacks. So, in conclusion, C4 is an incredibly useful tool, but it does have some pretty significant drawbacks. Given these drawbacks, when you're thinking about which class to invest in C4 first, I would advise investing in the light assault. It, among all classes, has the capability of using C4 to its most effective end. Next on my priority list will be putting 1 brick of C4 on the heavy assault. This because between a brick of C4 and its rocket, it can effectively take on any enemy. Then for the other classes, as certs become available, you can start to unlock these abilities. However, given engineers have access to tank mines, I'd recommend putting it on the medic before the engineer. Now my next episode I'll be looking at something slightly different, considering those things that get you killed in the game. In the meantime, if you found this episode interesting or useful, please feel free to thumbs up, thumbs down, comment or subscribe as appropriate. Happy hunting and Pintpot out.